So thank you, sir. And I know this is in a way a very important piece of legislation, bringing amendments to some of the very important institutions, professional bodies that function in the country. As we know, when we want to accelerate the rate of growth of Indian economy, it is obvious that a main important responsibility will be that of the corporate sector. Because as the finance minister said in a budget speech, as well as reiterated it on a number of other occasions, that we must boost private investment. Besides public investment, which is really now responsible for bringing in a very good, respectable rate of growth for the Indian economy, we must have a corresponding boost from the Indian private sector, which is actually called a corporate sector. There are, of course, non-corporate sector entities as well, but major burden lies on the corporate sector. The corporate sector's functioning, therefore, becomes very important. How do you ensure that a corporate sector which collects monies from the secondary market, from the primary market, put it back as equity or even loans, they borrow from the banks as well as from others? How do you ensure that this corporate sector functions properly? So, in a collective wisdom of this parliament, we passed a law just 2 years after the independence, way back in 1949, when we created Indian Chartered Accountant Institute. We created subsequently Cost and Works Accountant Institute, also Company Secretary Institute. They are the three major professional bodies which have a very important role to play in ensuring that corporate sector functions properly, and they have to also make sure that their own function is also transparent. How can you guarantee that a sector which has to rely on such entities and the members who are getting the membership flowing out of the charter of these institutes, how do they maintain properly? So their functioning also has to be proper. So therefore, this is a very important legislation, I would feel, which are trying to deal with the various aspects related to these two. There are, of course, few provisions which are sought to be amended. Let me, first of all, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to disclose my interest. I am a chartered accountant by training. And I used to also practice as a chartered accountant for quite some time before, I don't know, rightly, wrongly, I decided to come into public life. And now I completed 40 years in public life, 26 years in the parliament. So I don't know, it was a right decision, wrong decision, I don't know.
For us, it's a right decision, Mr. Prabhu.
I am a chartered accountant by training. That's why I want to disclose that and tell you that in that context I am speaking. So I was asking my institute, of which I am a member, that I heard that you are opposing this bill tooth and nail. I said, why are you opposing it? They said, no, I think there is some misconception. We are not opposing. So I said, where are you supporting? So I collected from them that they are almost on several points. They have accepted a proposal which was mooted by the ministry. So it's a good thing that there was a dialogue between the government and I, knowing my honorable minister who have worked for many, many years, that she will definitely consult somebody without doing anything like this. So I really appreciate it. So therefore, it is not true that Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, I cannot speak on behalf of the other two institutes because I am not a member of them, but they are not fully opposed everything that has been said in the bill. So there have been a lot of acceptance of the proposal, including determine the fee for the entry of the name in the register, powers to discipline chartered accountant firms, that is section 20A, 21A, 21B, increasing quantum of punishment, maintenance of register of firms, duration of council term, finance of the council, increasing the penalty for falsely claiming to be a member, etc., etc. So now, this is a good thing that new amendments are being proposed. So stakeholders were consulted, and therefore, in that spirit, I feel it's also necessary to understand if there are any apprehensions on the part of members of the Chartered Accountant Institute as well as other institutes. So on the first one, I think this is very important to note, is related to disciplinary action to be taken. As we know, no one can dispute the fact that every institute and every member of that institute must function in a manner which has to be firstly in accordance with the law, but also in line with the professional conduct rules that have been framed from time to time. And the regulation of that, ideally, should be self-regulation. In fact, the former president of the institute is also sitting here. So, it should be in regulation, should be such that it should be done in a transparent way, but also must inspire confidence of the society. It is true that some instances that have happened in the last several years, people are questioning about this issue. So I can understand the response, but I will only point out to my the Honorable Minister about certain issues which are related to this. So number one, the provision related to the Constitution of Board of Discipline, which is sought to amend Section 21A(1) and Section 21B(1). We are trying to propose that there should be 3 non-chartered accountants besides 2 chartered accountants. I would like to just point out one important issue related to this. See, normally, the disciplinary action will be taken when there is a professional misconduct. The professional misconduct will arise out of, normally, most of the professional misconduct. There can be complaints like fighting between the partners of the chartered accountant firm. There could be issues related to certain other issues which are really speaking not professional as such, though related to professional chartered accountant firm, but not professional in that sense of the term. So what is professional misconduct largely will accrue, will come out of a very important issue related to balance sheet and profit loss account, broadly you can say financial statements. Now these financial statements had to be prepared, and I was saying in context of, there is another chartered accountant sitting here, Gujarat. So these statements which are prepared in case of corporate sector, particularly largely which are related to us, but to the Companies Act. So there was a provision in Companies Act 1956, and when we repealed that act, we replaced it with some other new code. The provision still subsists in the same way. And what does it say? It says an auditor has to certify the balance sheet and profit loss account, the financial statements, to be true and fair. See, very important part. When you say true and fair, it is not even our intention of this legislation, our parliament, because we only passed the law. We only made the provisions about how the auditor should certify. In that we said they should certify that should true and fair. It is fair, the word fair. What is fair? Is a very subjective term. The fairness, if my son will think I am not fair to him, my son's friend will think his father is fair to him. What is fairness will differ from person to person. Very subjective assessment. Now my point is, if a subjective assessment is the cause of disciplinary action, in that case, let it be left to the judgment of the professionals. How can you decide the fairness of a financial statement which is so technical in nature when a non-chartered accountant can sit on judgment and decide about it? Let us look at it, sir. If there are normally, in a medical cases also, there are a lot of misconduct possible. The Indian Medical Council goes into it. But suppose if you are looking at a medical procedure, whether it was done rightly or wrongly, can it be decided by a non-medical professional? Can you tell a non-doctor to say that please tell me that whether this surgical procedure was corrected properly or not? And if it comes to judgment like this, what would be the effect of that? Suppose because I am a chartered accountant, I can say I know everything, and if I sit on judgment to decide whether that medical procedure is right or wrong and I give a judgment, what implications it will have? So I am not saying that fairness of a financial statement is important, but the fairness of these proceedings also are important. Therefore, I understand why it is proposed by the government that non-chartered accountant. But will it suffice the purpose for which it is made? Will it achieve the objective? Or it will create some unintended wrong consequence? Because then I am going to sit on judgment and say, oh no, this is wrong. What is my technical competence to decide that? And therefore, this is extremely important. There is another chartered accountant. I discovered he is a chartered accountant recently, Mr. Arun Singh. So we are very few. We are a minority. So please bear with us. So sir, I was saying that this disciplinary action to be taken, and as I said, largely it flows from financial statements. And as I said, financial statements are also certified in a way that should not be done to give an impression about a statement which is completely wrong or misleading. So what is misleading and what is wrong is actually very important. And therefore, all over the world, because this is what is the practice followed most of the countries in the world, at least the advanced ones. What is important therefore is there has to be some sort of a codification of this. How do you make sure that true and fairness has been achieved when the balance sheet was signed by a chartered accountant or the auditor in that case? So auditing is a technical term which we use. But what is auditing really speaking? End of it, you are giving an assurance. So audit is a function which gives assurance to all those who want to rely on that statement. It's a public statement, public document, and in case of companies, obviously it's a public document. It is available on the website of Register of Companies. Anybody can access it. In case of listed companies, it is available with the stock exchanges, respective stock exchanges where you are listed. So in this case, it is very important that there is an auditing standard on auditing SA 200. What does it say? Sir, it says, overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit according to standards on auditing is the mother standard of all standards. And it also says that it is an assurance which is given in a way that provides reasonable assurance about the financial statement of the company. Now, what is reasonable is very important. So there is a concept of materiality in auditing. Because when you audit companies, and Indian companies are also now becoming bigger and bigger, we have large companies. So you cannot conduct the audit of those companies unless you use the concept of materiality. Use materiality and find out whether this particular aspect is material in nature. That's why I should report on it. And therefore, you can qualify the report. So even though you say it's a true and fair picture of the company, you can qualify your statement as an auditor. In that qualification, you will say something which is material in nature. So my request is, considering all these important aspects of this, while I understand why this government is thinking on these lines, but I personally feel there is a need for a serious rethink about a composition of Constitutional Board of Discipline in which no harm having an outsider. This is absolutely a part of fairness. But the numbers should not be such that you'll have non-chartered accountants outnumbering chartered accountants who are qualified to do that. And I give an example of doctors. Suppose if you sit a medical board in which you get 10 people, of which 8 are non-doctors, what would be the finding of that medical board would mean, end of the day. So I think this is something which I request the Honorable Minister, and I know I've known her for years, she's a most reasonable person, so we will definitely look into it. If not now, I'm not proposing amendment, but I'm sure over a period of time, you will definitely look into this. The second part which has just been mentioned, and this is something which I was wondering why there should not be, if under section 21(8), anybody can file a complaint against a professional body or a professional member of that body, rightly so. It has to be like that. But when you file a complaint, it should be taken to the logical end. What is logical end? The logical end would mean that the complaint should be heard by appropriate authorities, should be disposed of in a manner after probably giving even judgment on that particular process. But during the pendency of that complaint, it is always possible that you can withdraw the complaint. Sir, even in the courts, if you file a petition, courts allow you to withdraw because you need to seek their permission. Here in this house, if I present a bill, I will seek the permission of the house, but then I can withdraw the bill. So I don't know why there should be a provision which does not allow the withdrawal of complaint. Because complaint has to be taken to logical end, I am fully agreeing. But for whatever reason, I decided to file a complaint, and then I realized that probably it was not the way it should have been filed, or the merit of that complaint I was not knowing at that particular time, whatever could be the reason. But I think there is a need to also allow the withdrawal of complaint rather than saying this. Of course, there are provisions which is trying to bring in more coordination between the three bodies. I am told there is already a coordination between the three bodies because there is a reason to bring it. I only feel that when you decide the terms of reference of these coordination committees, which is going to be chaired by the Secretary of the Corporate Affairs Ministry, to be done in a way that we must realize that there are three distinct bodies dealing with three distinct functions, so related to main sector, corporate sector, but completely different functions. And that's why in the wisdom of this parliament, we decided to have three different bodies. We never, otherwise we could have made one single body. But we realized that there is need to have three different bodies. And when we have three different bodies, coordination is always a good idea, there's nothing wrong. But making sure that this coordination will happen in a way, keeping in mind the distinct identities as well as the different role of these individual professional bodies. I think that's something, if it is done properly, would really help in a very important way. I also feel that the removal of firms, I think, Madam Minister, I would like to just bring it to your attention, something which again is an important aspect. Ultimately, if you find that a particular professional member has not done a good job and it is finally concluded, so then the end will definitely happen in removal of his membership, rightly so. Because that's the ultimate punishment you can give. Because if you feel that he's not performing his professional duties rightly, what right he has got to continue to be a member, understandable. But there are instances, because we have multiple regulators in the country. There's a capital market regulator, SEBI. There is a banking regulator, Reserve Bank of India. There's an insurance regulator, IRDA. And there are multiple regulators, even for pension fund, we are regulators of different kinds. Suppose if one of the regulators, for whatever reason, points out that there is something wrong and this firm or this member is not done a correct job, you should not then jump to conclusion immediately to remove his name from the register of members. That is what might happen, and that is something which will be unfair and even denial of natural justice. And also, in what context other regulators, because we are now creating even a disciplinary committee here. So let the disciplinary committee deciding about it is understandable and logical. But because of certain adverse findings on some other context by other regulator or other bodies, not necessarily regulators as well, if we are going to finally terminate a membership, it will be very unfair. So I'm sure that is not her intention, and therefore I'm sure you will take note of this eventually. But I know it is not your intention, I'm just pointing out to you that what would be the situation as a result of that. But coming to the very important aspect, that this is a time that we have a great opportunity to bring about huge increase in our service exports. So luckily, I succeeded the finance minister as commerce industry minister, and I had known the good work that she had done, and I'm not sure I could carry forward such a good work as she did. But the huge potential for service exports, and our service exports will rise faster than merchandise exports over a period of time. And in service exports, one of the services that we can export in a significant way is this professional service which are coming from these three institutes. Whether chartered accountants, whether cost accountants, or whether company secretary institute and the members can actually bring about a huge increase in their export earnings and also create huge job opportunities. There are many possibilities that you can render these services offshore. Sir, this particular pandemic has shown that most of the work now is carried out from distant places. So just imagine in all these financial services, in auditing, in taxation. Auditing, of course, is a regulator subject because you have to do audit, you have to be registered in that particular jurisdiction. But otherwise, you can carry out such services in a very efficient way, remotely. And there offers a great opportunity for all these three professional bodies. So in that context, you must strengthen them, make them more effective, make them more efficient. And there are a number of young chartered accountants who are now wanting to be chartered accountants, despite the fact that they could see not a good chartered like me, but still they want to become chartered accountants. And I know that this is possible, that we can create huge employment opportunities for these millions, not millions, but few lakh chartered accountants or aspiring chartered accountants. And cost accountant and company secretary, the number will be higher. So I feel, realizing this, we should keep, I'm just going. So we'll really need to strengthen these professional bodies. I'm sure we'll take these appropriate measures along with this amendment that we are doing. We'll also work on ensuring that this potential that these particular three professional bodies hold will be exploited to the fullest. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhu. The next speaker is Himati Mausam Noor.